The dust settled around Jake's boots as he stood in the doorway of his ranch house, staring at the woman who'd just stepped out of a sleek black car. She wore a designer suit that looked impossibly out of place against the backdrop of his weathered barn and endless Montana sky. He'd been expecting lawyers, collection agents, anyone but her. "Mr. Harrison?" she asked, her voice steady but her eyes betraying something he couldn't quite read. "I'm here about the property." Jake's jaw tightened. 3 generations of Harrisons had worked this land, and now it was slipping through his fingers like sand. The drought had been merciless, the debts crushing, and the bank's patience had finally run out. He'd ignored the letters, the calls, hoping for a miracle that never came. Now here stood reality in expensive heels. "You're early," he said, his voice rough from disuse. He lived alone now, had for 5 years since his father passed. Talking to cattle and horses didn't require much conversation. She walked closer, and he noticed she was younger than he'd thought, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back severely and a leather briefcase that probably cost more than his truck. "I wanted to see it before the auction," she said, looking past him at the sprawling ranch that had been his entire world. Something in her tone made him step aside. As she walked through his home, touching nothing but observing everything, Jake felt a strange weight in the air. She paused at the photographs lining the hallway, his grandfather breaking horses, his father at the county fair, Jake himself as a boy with a ribbon from his first rodeo. "My grandmother used to talk about a place like this," she said suddenly, her professional mask slipping. "She grew up on a ranch in Wyoming. Said it was the only place she ever felt truly free." Jake said nothing, but something shifted in his chest. This wasn't just another corporate vulture picking at his bones. She turned to him, and for the first time, he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight she carried that had nothing to do with briefcases and balance sheets. "I need to tell you something," she continued, her voice dropping. "My name is Sarah Chun, and I'm not here representing the bank." She reached into her briefcase, and Jake tensed, but she pulled out a folder, not foreclosure papers. "6 months ago, my grandmother passed away. She left me everything she had with one instruction: find a ranch in trouble and save it. She said she owed a debt that could never be repaid." Jake's mind reeled. "I don't understand." Sarah's eyes glistened. "In 1953, my grandmother was 17 and pregnant, thrown out by her family in San Francisco. She somehow made it to Wyoming with nothing but the clothes on her back. A ranching family took her in, no questions asked. They gave her shelter, helped her through the birth, taught her to ride and work the land. They saved her life and my mother's life. She never forgot them, never stopped feeling like she should have done more to repay them." The silence stretched between them like the vast prairie outside. Jake's throat felt tight. He knew stories like that, had grown up on them, stories of when neighbors helped neighbors, when a handshake meant something, when the code of the West wasn't just mythology but a way of life his family had tried to uphold. "She spent 40 years building a tech company in Silicon Valley," Sarah continued, "always saying she'd find a way to give back. Then she got sick, and time ran out. So she left it to me. $2 million, Jake, specifically earmarked to save a ranch and keep it in the family that built it." Jake staggered back, catching himself on the doorframe. "Why me? Why here?" "Because I spent 3 months researching ranches in foreclosure across 5 states. Yours stood out. Not just because of the debt situation, but because of what people in town said about your family, about your grandfather teaching kids to ride for free every summer, about your father organizing relief efforts during the floods in '97, about you taking in that teenage boy whose parents died, giving him work and purpose until he got his life together." She smiled, tears now flowing freely. "You're them, Jake. You're the kind of people who saved my grandmother." Jake felt his own eyes burning. He thought he was losing everything. He'd thought his family's legacy would end with auction signs and strangers walking through his home. He'd been preparing to say goodbye to the only life he'd ever known or wanted. Sarah pulled out more papers. "There are conditions. You have to keep the ranch operating. You have to continue your grandfather's tradition with the kids. And you have to let me visit sometimes, because I need to know that places like this still exist in the world." "Wait," Jake said, his voice breaking. She paused, looking at him with concern. He took a deep breath, years of loneliness and fear cracking open inside him. I don't know what to say except thank you, and that you're welcome here any time. This land, this life, it's meant to be shared. Sarah smiled, really smiled, and suddenly looked 10 years younger, like she'd set down a burden she'd been carrying too long. My grandmother used to say that kindness isn't a transaction. It's a river that flows forward through time, touching lives we'll never see. I think we just proved her right, as the Montana sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Jake and Sarah stood on his porch, two strangers connected by an act of grace that spanned decades. The land that had nearly broken him would endure, and with it, the simple truth his grandfather had taught him, that we're all just passing through, and what matters is what we leave behind for those who come after.